All right, hey, the video started. So regression, finding the equation of the line just after being given a table or maybe even a graph, because if it was a graph, it would look something like, oh man, I closed it out. I'll show you later. All right, so keywords that you want to look for, how to recognize when you're going to use quadratic regression, how you're going to know when to put these numbers in a stat edit. So you're going to find the words either projectile motion. It'll actually use the whole sentence. The data can be modeled by a quadratic function. The reason we're looking over the keywords is because we've already learned this same lesson with linear regression, whenever we had to figure out when to use option 4 for straight lines. So very first thing you want to do is click stat edit. Stat edit. Once again, this should look similar because this is something we have done in the past. So stat, first option is edit, press enter. And you might or might not already have numbers in there, okay? Now, you're always going to punch in your X values into L1, Y values into L2. L1 and L2 both should be there. I would first check to make sure you have both L1 and L2. Everybody have that? Now, if you already have numbers, which I do, to clear those out, you highlight L1 or L2, depending on what side you're on, press clear, enter. Go back, up, clear, enter. Clear, enter. Never, ever press delete, because if you press delete, you got to give the calculator to Ms. Ramirez and she has to fix it. So, and I already had somebody do that earlier. Go ahead and push those numbers in that are right there on your page. You should have those numbers on your own piece of paper. You shouldn't have to look up at mine, but go ahead and copy that table over. Why did you put the other one back? Do I need to replace batteries? Yeah. Okay, can you bring it to me, please? That way I know which one. Thank you.
Hey, Miss, can I move? Because this thing makes me pop. This thing right here.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, just scoot it back. Just scoot it back. All right. So after you're done putting those numbers in to stat edit, where do we go? It says click what? Stat again. And this time we scroll over to calculate. This is something we've already done before. We've used linear regression. Notice how it has in parentheses AX plus B. That looks most similar to what equation? This AX plus B, it looks similar to what? Y equals what?
Y equals
MX plus B. And when do you use Y is equal to MX plus B? When do you use it? It says it in the word. When you have a straight line. When you have a straight line. Today, we're actually working with number 5 for quadratic. Quadratic, when you have a what? Parabola. Say your graph is a parabola. If it says the keyword projectile, if it says quadratic function, how else do you recognize a quadratic in the equation? What does it have in the equation? What makes a quadratic a quadratic? Not just X, X what? X squared. If there's a squared in there somewhere, you're looking at quadratic equations, okay? Learn how to recognize it. If it's in Y is equal to MX plus B form, straight line. X squared, parabola. All right, anyway, so you click number 5 and you should see this screen. We scroll down to store. What do we do in store? It says click, press alpha what? Enter, enter, enter. Alpha trace, enter, enter, enter. Alpha trace, enter, enter, enter. And there's your equation. Now it gives you the coefficients. What is a coefficient? Number where? Number in front of a variable. So the coefficient of X squared, A is the coefficient of X squared. A goes in front of X squared. B goes in front of X. C is the number that's added or subtracted to the end. A, B, C. There's your equation. A, B, C. Okay. What? Alpha trace, enter, enter, enter. Go down to store. Alpha trace, enter, enter, enter. All right, now, so let's go ahead and do example 1. But it's regression is pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward.
That's easy.
Yeah. Well, we're already done with that. I'm already done showing you the steps. So let's go ahead and do the first example. There's only 3 examples, nothing very difficult. It says the table below shows the population of a city every 10 years since 1970. The data can be modeled. There it is. Your keyword, quadratic function, can be modeled by a quadratic function. I'm given a table, so my answer choices will probably most likely be in the form of an equation, okay? Now it says based on the table, which function can be used to model the situation? Function, meaning write my equation. Function, they're asking for the equation. It will be in multiple choice, but I would rather you write it down. So equation. Now I have a table, that's all I'm given. So I know to put numbers into the calculator, you go to stat edit. To take numbers out, you go to the table. So stat edit. If I'm given the numbers to put into the calculator, stat edit. Same applies to linear regression. If they give you the table, stat edit. If you need to find something on a table, second graph. Okay. So 489, 801, 1202, 1998, 2959. All right. So after you're done putting those points into stat edit, where do we go? Stat calculate to the right, number 5. Today we're working with number 5. We've already worked with number 4, but today is 5. What do we do in store? Alpha trace, enter, enter, enter. And there it is. Now, if you're given decimals, just write 2 decimal places after, or 2 numbers after the decimal. So let's write this in function form, f of x. F of x is what? 1.20 x squared plus what?
Plus 12.99.
12.99 x plus 0.25. Now, once again, you have to put the x squared in yourself. You put the x squared in yourself. It doesn't put it in there for you. You have to form the equation yourself, but it gives it to you as a, b, and c. The part that you need to know is that a goes in front of x squared, b goes in front of x, c goes at the very end, added or subtracted by itself. Okay, that 1.20, that's my a, there's my b, and there's my c. So that's what your answer choice would look like. What's up? Ooh, maybe. So it says using this model, what will be the estimated population in 2020? Okay, population. First, let's figure out where the population is. Is population an X or a Y value?
Y.
And population is a Y value. So they want us to figure out what the Y value is. What is my Y value if the 2020 is what? It's a year. Years are my X value if the X value is 2020. Now, notice my numbers don't go up as high as the 2000s. Why not? If you look at the title, if you pay attention to the title, what do you see?
10,000. Oh, since year.
Number of years since 1970. If there was 0 years since 1970, the 0 represents what year? 1970. 10 years since 1970 would represent 1980. So then this is 1990. 30 is 2000. 2010. It's just going up by tens. So we don't actually have 2020 on the table. But I know that if I looked for 2020, it would be represented by what X value? Not 2025, 2020. By what? By 50. So that means we have to find the number 50 on the table to figure out what my Y value is. They gave us the X value 50, but what is my Y value? And where can I find that in the calculator? I could find, oh, so the first place that I need to go to, the first place I must go to is y equals. If I go to y equals and say, I don't have anything there, what did I forget to do? Say I go to y equals, I press y equals and there's nothing there. What step did I skip? Nope. Nope.
Oh, wow.
Nope. I forgot to go to store. If you don't have an equation in y equals, it's because you've skipped the alpha trace step. If you don't have an equation in y equals, it's because you skipped alpha trace. Same applies with linear as it does quadratic. And there I noticed that, or I recognized my 1.20928574. So using alpha trace puts every single decimal place into y equals. So that's why we're able to round, okay? Now to find the 50, I go to where?
Second window.
Not second window, second
Oh, second graph.
second graph. And this is where all of my numbers are. This is where all of my numbers are. Mine are in decimals, it's okay. So this is where all of my values are. I cannot find 50. If I go scroll down, I'm gonna be here forever looking for the 50. So now, Aiden, what is the fastest way to get to that 50? To jump straight to the 50, to jump straight to the 50. And this is something that we wrote into our notes in a different spot for linear regression. If we want to jump straight to a high value, say for example, 50, or say in the X values, they used 1970 instead of 0. To jump to a number that's really, really high, you go to second window. Second window. And where it says table start, TBL start, that is where you put the 50. You don't have to press enter. You don't have to clear anything out. You just, here we go. You just put the number, you simply put the number where it says start. This second line where it has a triangle, the delta table, never ever change it from the number 1. That never changes. So type in 50. It'll automatically change it. You don't have to press delete. You don't have to press clear. It'll automatically switch. So type in 50. You press second window, type the 50 in the first line. Press second window, type 50 in the first line. Now, where do we go back to check the table? Second graph. And I'm going to write that in there because not surprisingly, if we don't write it in, apparently we don't know how to go back to the table. Second graph. I typed it in, but it didn't go back. Yes, you have to type second graph again. Everybody have that note? So I can bring my calculator back up. All right. Second graph, and there it is. So what is the Y value? 4,177. 4,177. Am I going to use that 0.4? Yes or no? Why or why not?
No.
Why not? Why not? Nope, that's not why. Maybe somebody else will help you. Why would we not use the 0.4? Why would we not use the 0.4? What are we talking about? What is this representing?
All years.
Population. It's not representing years, it's representing population. And population is what? People. You cannot have a decimal of a person, correct? You cannot have, and even if it was 4,177.6, you cannot round up, because rounding up would mean that you're creating body parts out of thin air. Okay, so just 4,177 people. Okay, all right, next one. Table shows monthly sales in thousands for a new hair salon since its grand opening in March, and it can be modeled by what? A quadratic function. Quadratic function. Make sure you highlight that. Quadratic function. So I'm given a table. Where do you go to put the points in? Stat edit. So go to stat edit. Remember, only press clear, never press delete. If you press delete, Ms. Ramirez will be mad. Or lower than disappointed. I don't know. 0. 1, 2, 3. How far does it go? 4, 5. All right. Those are decimals, by the way. So
Oh, I was on the wrong one.
all right, after putting those points in, by the way, it will switch. If it's 9.0, it will switch it back to 9. Don't lose it just because of that. Stat, then where? Calculate, what number? 5. What do I do in this screen? Store, what do I do in store? If you get an error message, more than likely, it means that you have 2 equations in y equals, just clear those out. It'll override the 1, but not all the equations that are in there. All right, so there's my answer. You can compare those numbers, compare those decimal numbers, those decimal values to your answer choices. Now, I know that the number in front of x squared or the coefficient of x squared is 0.123. So I would automatically eliminate what 2 answers? B and D. And then why would you eliminate C? There is a 5.59. There's no B. If there is a number here for B, it must be present in the equation, okay? Even though these numbers do match up, because I'm given a value for B, it must match up or it must be present into the equation. So the answer is A. And just for reference, the reason that you get, or you can get the answers B and D, but that is for those people that always type in Y and then X instead of X and then Y. Remember, ordered pairs always X and Y values, not Y and X. That's for my people that keep switching that up. They will give you an answer choice. If you have a table that's laying down, it's X on top, Y on bottom, X, Y. If you want it in L1, L1, not Lee, L1 and L2. I don't know why I put a little dot. L1, L2, okay? You need it that way. All right, now it says, what's a prediction for the total sales and when? September. We don't actually have months, but we should, based on the title, know that 0 represents what? 0 represents March. So the 1 represents 2, 3, 4. So what number are we looking for? Number 6. What is my Y value if my X value is the number 6? No. Is it? So first things first, you go to Y equals, make sure your equation is there. Make sure your equation is present in Y equals. And from there, I can go to my table, but it's at the number 50. So how do I go directly to the number 6? Not step. Second graph. It's in the notes. Second window where it says start, press the number 6. Now, how do I get there again? Second graph. And you get 10.45, 10.45. Do we keep all the numbers this time? Yes or no? Why? What does it represent? Sales, and sales is what?
Money.
Sales is money. So yeah, 45, $10.45, money. Okay. Ready. Last one. This one does not, the paragraph above the table does not say quadratic function, but it does say what? Projectile, projectile. Projectile is like an object in motion. It's just another word for an object in motion. Object in motion. It's an object in motion. If you kick a ball, it's in motion. If you throw a ball, it's in motion. If you're swinging, you're in motion. Object in motion, projectile motion. You shoot out of a cannonball, you're in motion. All right, so let's go ahead and put those numbers into our stat edit screen. I did not catch what you just said. Okay. 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 0, 48, 60, 64, 60. Oh, Lord, I think I did. Mine didn't line up. Something went wrong. 0, 0, 28. Aw. Can I insert? Heck yeah. There it is. 1.5, 60. Okay. And there's. All right. Then we go to stat calculate, number 5. What do we do in this screen? Go to store, and in store you press. Make sure you go to store. I've had some people try to put alpha trace where in the very first line. Don't do that. All right, and there is our equation. So there is our what? Our function. There's our function. That is the equation that you're going to write. So we write it as f of x. I will turn the air down a little bit because I'm burning up myself. F of x is what? Negative 16. 64x. Now, will they actually include the plus 0 on the answer choice, in the final answer choice? No, they won't. All right, now it says based on the graph, how high? How high? What value represents height, x or y? Height is a y value, so they're asking us for the y value in feet. What is the height if they give us how many seconds? 3.75. We're given the x value. What is the y? Okay, so let's go to y equals, double check, make sure we have an equation there, and I do. So how do I go straight to the 3.75? Second window, 3.75. Okay, my screen isn't changing. I have to proactively press second graph. I have to press second graph. And what do we get? 15. So it's at a height of what? 15 feet. 15 feet. Now, this last question here, it's highly unlikely that they ask us. It hasn't been asked for like the last 3 years, but just in case, because they are talking, there's rumors that it'll be like a very old test that we used to take. So just in case they ask us, it says based on the graph, how long would it take? How many seconds? How many seconds would it take? How many seconds would it take for it to reach a height of 62 feet? Okay. Now you cannot type that into second window, because if you go to second window, what are you actually inserting?
Why?
Not y. You're in where this 3.75 seconds is a what? It's an x value. You can't use it for your y values. Okay. Cannot use it for your y values. So you actually have to look at your table. What y value, height is your y value. What y value is closest to 62? 64. But look at what's happening to, this is a parabola, remember. So from 0 to 28, we're increasing. So it means that my object, whatever that object is going up to 64 and then back down. So think about this. How many times is it actually going to be at 62 feet? Twice. It can be at 62 here, but it could also be at 62 here. So even though it takes 2 seconds, even though it takes 2 seconds to reach the 64, I'm going to look for an x value that is closest to what? 2 seconds. So 2.0, closest. It's not going to be exact. You're going to find the one that is closest to 2.0. Since it crosses twice, it can be less than 2.0 seconds, like 1.9. It could also be more. It can be 2.1. Okay. All right. Glue this one into 117. No, 18.